in which he describes as of the ever-living organism, and he considers calling it Gaia, which I just find just incredible. So he
Make him sound more and more modern. He actually predicted human-induced climate change in 1800 when he was in Venezuela. This is a clip of his writing.
When forests are destroyed, as they are everywhere in America, by the European planters, with an imprudent precipitation, the springs are entirely dried up or become less abundant. The beds of the rivers, remaining dry during a part of the year, are converted into torrents whenever great rains fall on the heights. The sward and moss disappearing with the brushwood from the side of the mountains, the waters falling in rain are no longer impeded in their course. And instead of slowly augmenting the level of the rivers by progressive filtrations, they furrow during heavy showers the sides of the hills, bear down the loosened soil, and form those sudden inundations that devastate the country.
He was a visionary, Andrea Sella, wasn't he?
Yes, completely. And the mention, I hadn't realized that he had thought of the word Gaia 200 years before James Lovelock sort of made that hypothesis. I mean, in many ways, he seems a really prophetic figure.
Yes, it's actually quite shocking when you read his books and you think, well, he wrote this 200 years ago and we still haven't sorted anything out.
Did people listen to him then?
Well, they listened to him in some respects, not so much. So they listened to him in terms of that they understood that Earth was a living organism. They didn't really understand the global consequences of environmental devastation. And that's really the extraordinary thing about Humboldt, that he thought, he was already thinking on a global scale. He was not just thinking about, a little forest somewhere in Prussia or something like that. He was looking across continents. His influence in terms of environmentalism is more his influence on people, so the people he inspired. So for example, John Muir, the American father of national parks, was greatly inspired by Humboldt, and a lot of Muir's idea about the protection of the forest come from Humboldt. Humboldt kind of inspires another generation and the next generation, and then obviously we kind of stop listening.
Among children, even, he's known, Humboldt, for having a penguin named after him. I think a lot of children will be aware of that. And also an ocean current, perhaps more importantly.
Yes, the Humboldt Current is the cold ocean current that hugs the west coast of South America. There are in fact more plants, places and animals named after him. That's why it's so extraordinary that he's so forgotten in the English-speaking world.
What would he make of the climate change talks in Paris? What would he be saying there?
Well, I'm pretty sure that he would be shocked that we are still abusing our planet. I don't know what he would be saying. The only thing I know is that I wish there would be someone like Humboldt right now in Paris, because he so much believed in the communication across disciplines. So for example, he organized in 1828 a congress in Berlin where he invited 600 scientists from across the world, and unlike other conferences where you have one speaker talking to the whole audience, he put them together in little groups. He organized social outings, meetings. So the important thing for him was like the kind of fostering communications across disciplines.
This cross-discipline thing reminds me a bit of Goethe, that other massively famous German, who was arguably a brilliant writer, but wasn't such a brilliant scientist, right?
Well, he was actually a quite good scientist. He was not so great on his optics, but he was a really good geologist, and he was a very close friend of Humboldt. So they inspire each other. They're very much part of the same group of friends.
Alan?
Yeah, I think it's really good that we brought a scientist into this discussion, because I do believe that if there's one thing that's going to help us with the climate change, it's going to be technology. How fast it's changing, and the fact more scientists to come together from different fields to come together and find a more way of doing it.
Andrea?
I mean, I think the thing which is marvelous about Humboldt is that he starts, in a sense, in that 18th century tradition of the sublime and imagining man's insignificance in the face of nature. But what he really realizes is, the situation we're in now, the idea of the Anthropocene, in a sense, that man has a really big impact on the world now and is the dominant force. And that's the big change, which has taken us so long to realize.
Andrea, before you go, if there's one thing we should remember as a message from Alexander von Humboldt, what would it be?
It would probably be that you don't just sit down and don't, not do anything at all. So this was like the most restless man I have ever encountered. He, he lived until he was almost 90, and he never stopped his curiosity. He never stopped communicating. He never stopped looking, trying to find answers. So maybe that, I don't know.
Andrea Wolf, that sounds a good message.